Hello, everyone, and welcome to RELEX Radar, our monthly live stream on LinkedIn where we explore the latest and most relevant topics in supply chain, retail, CPGs, and beyond. We go live every second Wednesday of the month at 9 or 10 a.m. Eastern, rain or shine. You can follow RELEX Solutions on LinkedIn to keep up to date with the latest developments in the retail and the CPG world. I'm your host, Casey McSherry, and today we're diving into one of the biggest and most talked about topics in the industry and beyond, artificial intelligence. What's real, what's next, and what does it actually mean for retailers, supply chain teams, and business leaders navigating constant change and volatility? Joining me today is Madhav Durbha and John Power. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Would you mind giving us a little introduction and a little bit about yourselves? Madhav, why don't you start?
Sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you're joining from. Madhav Durbha, I'm Group Vice President of Industry Strategy at RELEX Solutions for manufacturing. And in my role, I work with a number of our customers, our partners, and practitioners across actually industries, manufacturers, wholesale distributors, and retailers as well. And have a front row seat into all the good stuff they're doing with AI, and excited to be here.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Casey. Hi, everyone. My name's John Power. I head up one of our pre-sales consulting teams here at RELEX. So I spend a lot of my time with prospective customers, talking to them around how the RELEX software platform can support their business challenges and the value that that can deliver. So yeah, really looking forward to the discussion and everyone getting involved when you can.
Yeah, so why don't we just dive right in, because there's a lot of noise about AI right now. So why don't we just start with what's the latest and greatest in AI and how much of it is hype versus reality? Madhav, do you want to start us off with the latest and greatest in AI?
Sure. Yeah, I think you said it right, hype versus reality. I think it's important to filter signal from noise. Obviously, there are a lot of expectations in terms of what AI can do for companies. I'll take a couple of examples from the recent stories. One is a company called Firecrawl. They're a Y Combinator startup out of Silicon Valley. And they recently placed an ad. And the ad said, this is for a position in San Francisco. Only AI agents need to apply. $10,000 to $15,000 salary per year. So could be a PR stunt. There is some, of course, reality to it in the sense that agentic AI and AI in general is becoming super, super useful. In fact, to the extent that I think it was Shopify's CEO recently sent out an email company-wide, and then later on it became public, where he was talking about how their company needs to help online retailers get faster in terms of setting up online stores, so on and so forth. In that context, he was talking about if we can't keep growing at 20 to 40% unless we become that much more productive year after year, right? And one of the things he's talking about is if you're coming back and asking for additional headcount, first tell me why you can't do that job using AI. And so again, I think I use AI every single day in my job and personal life these days, and it is helping me improve my productivity. The key here is to not be afraid, but to embrace AI. AI is not here to get us, right? It's a tool to use correctly. I think all of us can be better and be in a better place. That's my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that this conversation resembles, I feel like we've created a lot of modern Luddites where people are very terrified of AI. And John, from your client conversations, how are retail leaders of today thinking differently about AI, maybe 2025, even just a year ago?
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So yeah, I think there's three things that have really stood out to me over sort of conversations over the last 12 months. I think first of those would be that now there's a firm expectation that planning solutions and software are using specialized AI to solve some of the most complex business challenges. and optimizing within the real world constraints that they have to operate within. I think the other theme has really been around that topic of Gen AI, and I think there's been a real mix of both curiosity and uncertainty around what they should do and where they should invest in that space. I think mainly driven by the pace of change and development in that area, and just trying to dissect sort of what is achievable and what is the hype. And agentic AI that Madhav mentioned has been a key theme within there. And then I think the final point links back to those previous two, where lots of questions around what's the impact going to be on my teams, what's the impact going to be on my org structures, and what does the skill profile look around those adapted roles as we embrace and start working more and more with AI?
Yeah. The human role in AI is a big topic on the top of everybody's mind. And also how fast AI is evolving. So if AI is evolving so fast, what is the role of humans as employees or workforce? Where to even start with that? But yeah, Madhav, do you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. Look, I think humans are going to be even more relevant and more valuable in the new world. If you think about how even retail planning space, supply chain planning space in general is evolving, increasingly AI is able to do a lot of the mundane tasks that humans used to do, like, data munging, clubbing the data together, harmonizing the data, catching anomalies, scrubbing the data, and then prepping it for actual use in their planning processes. And then, of course, the planning itself, right? The world around us is changing fast. What's happening outside the four walls of a company is impacting them a lot more than what's happening within the four walls. Because of that, even the ability to process external signals is becoming increasingly important. As the amount of data multiplies and actually grows exponentially, it starts getting beyond human ability to process all the data into information and insights. So those type of jobs are best left to machines, right? And then the machines can flag exceptions. It's still very much a human in the loop world. Machines can flag exceptions so that the humans can look at those exceptions and spend their time more effectively and efficiently. But it calls for a bit of openness in our own thinking, in the thinking of humans as well, right? We should not look at, it's not a human versus AI kind of situation. It's more like human plus AI. How can we be better? What we are seeing in our experience with customers is that actually AI is enabling planners and users and even leaders to be better. It's equipping them with superpowers, so to speak, so that they can do their jobs more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, you were the first person I heard to use the superpower analogy, and I actually really like that and agree. And John, how do you see the role of planners evolving because of AI?
Yeah, really aligned with Madhav in that space. I think I really see AI being augmented with the planner role. So again, it's given them greater tools and capabilities at their disposal and their fingertips to add more value to their role. I think machine learning forecasting, learning forecasting has been sort of a well-established utilization of AI in businesses. But of course, you could have humans calculating a forecast, working through that data and producing a forecast. But when you look at the world of retail and the scale of data, the complexity that's involved, the pace and responsiveness that they need with those forecasts isn't practical. So again, you leverage the tools at your disposal and AI capabilities to go and do that. And when you look at that with the planner's role, it then drives greater accuracy, speed and responsiveness, but also automation that is enabling them to focus on the exceptions, maybe where there's greater uncertainty with the demand forecast that we have in place. So we might be looking at new product introductions or key promotional and seasonal items. That's where they still add real value as they step through. And I think that's going to follow suit with the sort of introduction of GenAI and agentic AI. It's going to be a real supporting role for planners within businesses. I think it's going to remove barriers like tacit knowledge and certain technical skills, and empower them to be more strategic and more capable in terms of delivering significant value to their business and to their customers, which is critically important. I think one final point around this, I think, again, with that sort of interaction, which we're seeing more of within our sort of day-to-day living with GenAI tools. Having a really good discussion with one of my colleagues around where we're looking at diagnostics and feedback using our Rebot solution, and humans being more open to feedback from a GenAI tool than they are to a human giving that sort of constructive feedback. So I think that's going to be another area where that's sort of really empowering.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Also, I think you might react differently knowing that it's AI versus, your boss who maybe on a more personal level. I can totally see that. And getting used to having digital colleagues, I think, is something that people are starting to be more exposed to now as well. But you touched on a very important topic, generative AI versus agentic AI. So really, what is the difference? What is generative versus agentic? Madhav, do you want to jump on that one?
Sure. Before we go there, you mentioned digital colleagues, right?
Yeah.
Digital assistants. One very interesting quote I heard recently is that your IT organization needs to become the HR for digital agents. So I thought that's a very, very interesting statement. But anyway, whether they take on full-on digital colleague roles or just be aids to us in our day-to-day job is to be seen. But I think just diving into your question about GenAI versus agentic AI, let's take GenAI, right? So think ChatGPT in the consumer world that we are all very familiar with. Essentially, what did you do with ChatGPT? It read all of internet and acquired massive amounts of knowledge. Now you can ask a question and ChatGPT is answering that for you. It's like you are having a conversation with the entire internet in one go. Right? Is the simplest way to think about it. Now, here's how it translates into the enterprise world. If you take our own Rebot as an example, at this point in time, Rebot has read all our product documentation and the general domain knowledge of supply chain. And you no longer have to pull up a product manual and refer to page number 157 to find a particular functionality explanation. Instead, our customers are actually having natural language conversations with Rebot and getting these answers and getting this help. Hey, how do I apply this particular technique in forecasting? Or how do I better manage my slow movers in my portfolio? These type of questions, Rebot is sitting right there and they're having conversations with Rebot. And last I checked, we ran over 350,000 questions that it was able to answer effectively for our customers. Wow. That's a massive unlock of productivity, if you think about it. Then the extension to that is having conversations with your own enterprise data, right? Because the supply chain models are built, these digital twin models are built on enterprise data. Exactly to John's point earlier, some interesting use cases we are finding are in the area of supply chain diagnostics. Now, so that's asking a question, getting an answer back, and so on and so forth, right? You're going back and forth. You're sparring with the GenAI. What agentic AI is doing is taking that to the next level. It actually applies a chain of thought, saying that, okay, this is what Madhav Durbha is looking for, and comes up with a sequence of steps to take care of certain actions. I can say, hey, there is a lot of uncertainty around tariffs. Can you suggest few scenarios that I should be evaluating? What steps should I be taking? See, that's a lot more complex query than hey, just saying tariffs are going up, serve up news sources to me, right?
Yeah.
The latest and greatest. So in this case, what agentic AI is doing is parsing through that question, making sense of it, and then breaking it down into executable steps, actually going and having conversation with the specialized AI that John referred to earlier, like ML algorithms and so on, and being able to take a set of actions and present to me with a handful of scenarios so I can pick the best. Okay. What is it doing? It's cutting down on number of mouse clicks I need to go through from a user experience standpoint. And the second thing it is doing is even executing some of these complex workflows, it is taking natural language interactions. So it opens up new types of user personas who can actually go have conversations with their applications, right? So I think the opportunity is tremendous, and I'm pretty excited about what GenAI and agentic AI can do for supply chains.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, in my day-to-day life here at RELEX, I use Rebot as well. And I find it so helpful and so, fast and easy. It really does. It's a time saver. Imagine all of those hours wasted waiting for someone to pick up the phone for customer service and then pressing 5 and then 7 to get to the right person. And then you still have to have the full conversation. You can really just go right to Rebot, and it doesn't care about your typos. It understands through all of that. So it really is quite useful. But yeah, let's bring it to the day-to-day. We have Rebot, our GenAI assistant, already in use by me. And what kind of problems is it solving today? What is the bigger vision for tools like this in the future? John, do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, sure. So, I actually went and took a look and asked Rebot what are the most common themes and what are customers asking you about. So it's useful around those things. So yeah, there were a few sort of common use cases that we sort of found from that. So one is around that sort of technical advice or queries. So if they're looking at, I'm going to go and look at optimizing my case size for my product that I'm moving through my supply chain, or I need to go and do some event data management. Again, it's asking for advice and guidance on that first line of support for the users. Again, not having to go to a manual or a support desk around supporting some of those queries. I think another one, there's been lots of questions around understanding those machine learning forecasting models. So how it works and the results that are coming out of it. So again, I think that's sort of showing real self-education and learning more about capabilities, technology that's driving the outputs and the actions that are sort of really relevant as part of their day-to-day processes. And then there's the piece around that advice. So again, I need to go and look after a fresh food category. What should I be considering? What are the important aspects that I work within as part of those? I need to look at creating a new dashboard or a report. I can give guidance and reports on those. So again, that's that sort of first line of support, trained on all our understanding, documentation of the product, how it works, the functionality, the optimizations, really supporting in a day-to-day activity. And that is really quickly evolving to support with those diagnostics that Madhav has mentioned. But again, that's moving into that agentic role. So again, think about, I've now got a curated list of my key exceptions and some root causing behind that and some suggested actions in terms of resolution, minimizing down on those clicks and navigations between reports and views. As I start looking at dealing with those exceptions and taking action, I can start mobilizing and orchestrating some scenario planning or setting some goals for some key optimizations and seeing those results and putting those into action. I think all that boils down to is us being more productive, more responsive, and more agile in supporting our business processes and delivering real value for your customers in the retail world, which is a real win-win situation. So really exciting times ahead as that comes more to the fore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear, do you have any practical retail and AI advice for organizations, and maybe other ways that we can apply it?
Yeah, I think the power of this digital twin and simulation activity. I think if I go back to my days when I was running sort of operational supply chain teams and transformation teams, we were living in a world where we needed to make some strategic changes to our approach and how we executed and drove our supply chain. But limitations with tools were we didn't quite know what we were getting on the other side of applying those settings. That's evolved to now we've got greater visibility. But I think with the agentic tools coming in place, that's going to be more accessible, more responsive, where I can test multiple scenarios, look at what the best option is, and then go and apply those effectively. So we're going to be able to adapt and adjust within this changing world of retail. And that's going to be a real sort of competitive advantage in terms of organizations that are utilizing those capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more popular it becomes, the more of a necessary staple it's going to be. It's a competitive advantage right now, and then it's going to be a disadvantage if you're not using it, basically, is how I see it.
Yeah.
And RELEX, we're using AI as well. Besides GenAI and agentic AI, there's a full AI portfolio we can leverage for different things. Madhav, you've written about AI as a toolkit rather than a silver bullet. And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, GenAI and agentic AI is right now drawing all the attention and taking up a lot of even media news cycles and all that. But let's not forget that there is a third class of AI, what we refer to as specialized AI, right? Think of these as algorithms that are doing heavy number crunching, okay? Whether it is optimization, whether it is heuristics, whether it is probabilistic models, whether it is machine learning, deep learning, so on and so forth. There's a whole class and library of algorithms that are purpose-built and are very suitable for certain jobs. That's why I use the toolkit analogy. A hammer can't do what a screwdriver can do or a wrench can do. You need a particular tool for the particular job. So the way we think about it at RELEX is, yes, we got a unified platform. We got a planning solution that is end-to-end in nature and a digital twin like John talked about. However, when you look at specific domain-specific problems, for example, forecasting, right? Machine learning is heavily applicable there because you have to parse through time series data. You have to look at a number of external data signals as well, start drawing causations and correlations between different set of variables. Machine learning works best. On the other hand, if you think about production problems, even retailers, several of the retailers that we work with are vertically integrated retail operations. When you get into production, these are sometimes you run into heavily constrained environments, constrained by capacities, constrained by materials, constrained by lead times, constrained by labor, variety of factors. You need to throw them into the blender and out comes the most optimal plan. Optimization is the best approach in those cases, right? So if you look at RELEX use cases, we work with a number of retailers driving daily replenishment or even intraday replenishment. Some of these retailers, as you would imagine, have tens of millions of product location combinations, in some cases even hundreds of millions, right? So speed is also important when you apply these specialized AI techniques that we have done. There's one more example I would take on where specialized AI is applicable is, retail industry has got a $400 billion problem, okay, which is inventory accuracy. Mm-hmm. Every single retailer I know of struggles with this store level inventory accuracy. What are the reasons for that? There is a damaged product, or product is not on the shelf, it's sitting in the back room, or you think the store inventory system thinks that the inventory exists, but it does not exist. Or it exists, or it is subject to spoilage. So the shoppers are actually not picking up the product, right? Because it expired or it spoiled, so on and so forth. So because of that, the inventory picture can be fairly inaccurate. What we have done is very special set of algorithms and probabilistic models to make corrective recommendations to the inventory picture. We call it true inventory, but also recommend optimized cycle counts based on where we are finding these patterns of problems and making sure that we recommend how frequently do you need to do cycle counts and so on. So these are all, I can go on and on, but let's not forget about this specialized AI. All these GenAIs, agentic AI is sitting on top of this specialized AI. Think of them as the minions behind the curtain, churning through a lot of stuff and coming back to you, serving up all sorts of cool insights, right? So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, it's a very important point. And talking about how RELEX leverages AI, John, I wanted to ask you, why should AI sit within a unified platform instead of being a bolt-on solution kind of a thing?
Yeah. So I'm a really strong believer in, especially within retail, and getting the customer proposition right and doing that efficiently requires you to break down traditional departmental silos in planning and execution. That's really critical at unlocking that and driving that transformation. I think we've seen that at RELEX, where you take that unified platform with embedded AI, it speeds up transformation, it delivers greater value, and it's really impactful and drives significant change. I think when we look at some research around what are the major barriers in terms of initial investigation into AI strategies and projects, has been data integration. And data is really the fuel for driving the value out of AI. So if you have that unified data on a platform, full transparency, full visibility, and you've got full orchestration of that, that is a real jump start on getting the value out of all these AI capabilities that we've been talking about today. So really, really critical and a real enabler.
Yeah. All right, we're almost at time here, so why don't we move to our lightning round? We've covered a whole lot about AI today, from practical tools to visionary tech. And I have one last question for both of you. As AI evolves into a true co-pilot for planners and decision makers, what's one thing retail leaders must do this year to stay ahead with AI? And I'll let, Madhav, if you want to take it.
Yeah, I would say start by encouraging your own teams to start using AI in their daily life. From an investment standpoint, take a portfolio approach, right? There are going to be what I like to think of as there are systems of record, systems of differentiation, and system of innovation. So think through these lenses on how do you want to differentiate yourself with certain applications, and then what are those moonshots that you want to take up, right? So it's going to be a combinatorial portfolio-based approach that you should be taking as leaders.
Yeah. John, what do you think? What's the one thing retail leaders must do this year to stay ahead with AI?
Yeah, tricky to choose one, but if I'm forced, I would say really try and avoid treating AI as a standalone initiative or project. Really look at embedding that into your core operating models and processes. Link those initiatives to real life KPIs, so then you can measure and prove out the value that it's delivering, and that's really going to accelerate the adoption, the scaling, and the growth of that within your organizations. So that would be mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you are actually allowed to pick two if you wanted to pick another one.
I think the second would be very much around what is the supporting strategy for your teams and your employees around enabling them to succeed. So within our workforce, there's going to be different demographics, different generations that are interacting with these tools. Absolutely. What training, learning, development strategies do you have aligned to these initiatives as well to make sure that you get the adoption and get the value out of it?
Yeah, it's a good call out. Yes?
Yeah, maybe I'll
add a second one.
Yes. Just something John said triggered this thought in my mind. The leaders should lead by example. Actually, what AI tools are you consuming in your day-to-day, right? As a leader, you need to ask yourself and lead by example.
Absolutely. A great A great piece of advice for leaders overall, I would argue. Lead by example. All right, so we are at time today. It's time to wrap up. We covered a lot of ground, from demystifying AI and breaking down the real tools behind the hype to exploring the role of humans in an AI-powered future, and how platforms like RELEX are using everything from heuristics to generative AI to drive real impact for retailers. A huge thank you to both Madhav and John. Thank you both so much for joining us today and for your expertise. Don't forget to follow RELEX Solutions on LinkedIn for more insights and updates. We'll be back on June 11th with our next episode, where we'll be discussing resilience and readiness, diagnosing risk in an era of global volatility. So make sure to mark your calendars. And if you missed any part of today, no worries. All episodes are available on demand on our LinkedIn page and on our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Casey McSherry. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.